Hi friends, it's Kayla. I am supposed to put up my March wrap up today of all the books that I read, but House of Leaves continues to kick my ass. So we're gonna put this off for a couple days, and today we're gonna do a silly reaction ranking video. Ms. Mojo put out this video called Every Nicholas Sparks Film Adaptation Ranked. That was about a month ago, and I wanted to react to it. So, oh my god, I have no lips. How will I get a kiss? I was gonna start filming from the beginning again once I looked like a normal person, but we're gonna keep all this in because this is the chaos of my life. Okay, good? I already took my thumbnail anyway, so where was I? I've spent the last month rewatching, and in a couple cases watching for the first time, every single Nicholas Sparks adaptation, so I could give my full educated ranking. So I want you to do this with me. I want you to grab a paper and a pen and write down the numbers 1 to 11, because that's how many there are. We haven't gotten a Nicholas Sparks adaptation in like 5 years. Like, that's nuts. Maybe he hasn't written a book worthy of an adaptation in 5 years. I don't know. Now, perhaps you haven't seen every single adaptation. Let me sum it up for you. White people from different worlds who can't be together for whatever reason. There's usually an illness. There's usually a death. There's always a dramatic scene in the rain. There's always a body of water. There's usually cheating. There's usually a second chance at love. This should be a bingo board. Am I already building the bingo board as I edit this video? Way to go. Small town, old letters, maybe a love triangle, maybe an overheard secret, rich family, poor family, military propaganda, religious propaganda. You get the gist. Formulaic. See, we could rank this in a lot of different ways, but we're not going to. We're going to focus on pure enjoyment. I could rank this by like closest to the book. We could rank this by which one improved upon the book the best. Which one was the saddest? Which one was the most believable? Which one had the best screenwriting? Which one had the best acting? Which one was the most problematic? Which one I related to the most? Which one has a story and characters that I actually agree with? Let me be so clear that that's not how we're ranking them. I don't know what Miss Mojo did. I don't know what they're gonna talk about, but I want to make it so clear that my ranking has nothing to do with like how much I think that the characters' actions were justified or like that people made the right decisions. I feel like movie YouTube is more passionate than book YouTube. I exist on book YouTube. So if you want to fight me on my ranking, I mean, you can. Because I definitely don't think that my opinion is the opinion, or should be the only opinion, or should be your opinion. And you know what? I'm sure there's enough videos already out there discussing the nuances and intricacies between all of the plots of all of these movies and like the problematic emotional blackmail that Noah embodies in The Notebook. We're not here for that. We're here for, did I enjoy it? Yes or no? I'm trying not to let nostalgia play too big of a part, but it might a little bit. Here's what I'm realizing when making my list. My top 4 are the only ones that I actually like. After that top 4, the next 4 could really be in any order. I don't have specific strong opinions about those middle 4, but the bottom 3 are the bottom 3, and I stand by that. And I think the one I put in last place is going to be the most controversial. So my history with Nicholas Sparks is that I clearly do not own any of his books, and I borrowed them all from the library. And that's because the last time I read a Nicholas Sparks was like 2013, and I wanted to watch it for the adaptation, and then I didn't like the adaptation. But in the rewatch, I changed my mind about it, which was very interesting. I feel like I've read most of the books that have been adapted, but in most cases, I read them after I watched the movie. I've never been a big Nicholas Sparks stan when it comes to books, but I'm always down to watch a movie, so I had seen most of the adaptations, and I do not care about how close they are. And I don't know if that's something that a lot of people care about. I feel like it is. But when I'm watching an adaptation of my favorite thing, I like to try to remove myself as best as I can and think that this is for somebody else. So none of my feedback or reasoning is probably gonna have to do with it being adapted much at all. Okay, let's check out this video. Go ahead and put your ranking down below in the comments, and then I can see what your thoughts are before you watch my thoughts.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're ranking every Nicholas Sparks film adaptation. We will be discussing the movie's plots, so a spoiler alert is in effect. Which Sparks film is your favorite? Let us know in the comments.
I'll let you know.
Number 11, The Choice. This movie follows two bickering neighbors, Travis and Gabby, as they fall in love and choose to be with each other.
You gonna dance with me out on the grass?
Part of me saw that coming, part of me didn't, but let me listen.
Why do you make it so hard for me to flirt with you?
Because if I made it easy, you wouldn't flirt anymore.
It seems like they're headed for a picture-perfect future, until a car accident jeopardizes her life. The story ultimately has a happy ending, but it's not very engaging. The main couple isn't compelling, the humor doesn't land, and Tom Welling is underutilized as the other guy.
So, kinda nuts that the movie I was just talking about is the very last movie on their list. Before rewatching all of these, I made a list of what I thought my favorites would be, and upon rewatching them all, quite a few of them shuffled around. The Choice was one of them. The Choice was last on my list when I made my preemptive list. I actually even made a video at the very beginning of my channel when I thought I wanted to do adaptation discussion videos, which was not the right idea for my channel, but oops, here we are again. I hated this movie when I saw it, and I wonder if having read the book and seen the movie back to back impacted that. But that wasn't a time in my life when the characters' actions did influence my enjoyment of a movie. The cheating in this movie and the cheating in every Nicholas Sparks movie is always something that I take issue with. However, upon rewatch and upon marathoning all of them, this movie was actually kind of a relief, because it was one of the only, and I think the very first Nicholas Sparks adaptations to ever not end in the death of one of the main characters and not rely on a death as a plot twist. The second time around, I ended up really appreciating the banter between these two when I didn't the first time. I ended up enjoying the love interest, which I didn't the first time. The dog storyline was cute. I think there were some unnecessary characters, but for me, The Choice is in the number 5 spot. And if you remember, I just said, I only liked the top 4. Like, if I look at my list, my top 4 are ones that I genuinely enjoy and I will champion a little. But after that, and the next 4 positions, which include The Choice, I don't feel immense passion for it. And I think there are quite a few Nicholas Sparks movies that are a lot more dull than this one. So that's where I placed it in my ranking.
Nothing to look at.
No.
Number 10, The Best of Me. This is the story of Dawson and Amanda, told through 2 timelines. In the present, they reconnect after the death of Tuck, a friend who was like family.
You know, we don't have to do this. Ask the questions, tell our stories, pretend to want to know about each other's lives.
Back in 1992, we watched them fall in love and get torn apart by violent circumstances.
I feel like if I were to look through the comments on this video, this might be one of their controversial picks. And again, it was at the bottom of my list until I rewatched it and I came to enjoy it a little bit more. So for me, this is in spot number 7. It's definitely towards the bottom. It's funny because the person who screen wrote this one, I think has written 4 scripts ever, and I've disliked all of those movies, and including the one that's at the very bottom of my list for this whole thing. Upon rewatch, I ended up really enjoying half of this movie, which is why it's in the middle of my list, because the younger storyline, those characters, those actors really worked for me. And I think this might be an unpopular opinion, but I really did not like the casting of both of the older characters. I understand that after seeing The Notebook, everybody wanted some retribution for James Marsden, and he did get his love story, but I really did not like any portion of it. This movie, of all the Nicholas Sparks movies, had the most dark scenes in it as well. I think this is the only one of all of his adaptations that has an overt murder scene. I just hated their dynamic, and I didn't think they had any chemistry whatsoever. But the younger ones, those actors, I enjoyed what they were doing.
Number 9, The Lucky One. When Marie
Thank you! Here we are at the bottom of my list. The Lucky One is number 11. My favorite fact about The Lucky One is that Frankie Muniz was once attached to star in this, which is very funny. Sorry, let me watch a second of what they're gonna say, in case you have no idea what this movie is.
When Marine Logan Tebow finds a woman's picture on the battlefield, he decides to seek her out once he's back in the US.
Looks like it saved you. Got yourself a guardian angel. She's not mine.
The woman is Beth, a divorced mother processing the passing of her brother Drake, a Marine who died overseas.
Okay, so this really has no bearing on my enjoyment of the movie. But again, on my rewatch, it was completely different because my memory, not that I thought that I enjoyed it. I didn't like this movie the first time around, but my memory of this movie was that there was a giant age gap between these two characters. And I can't think of why I thought that was, but I thought that's a reason that I didn't like the movie, was because there was this noticeable age gap, and I felt like it should have at least been brought up or discussed, or there was something involved with it, because in my mind, this was like a 23-year-old and a 37-year-old. I'm sorry. But watching it the second time, after looking it up on IMDb, I realized these actors are only 3 years apart. I just think they look so drastically different. But my actual issue with this movie is many. Number one is the acting performances. I really don't want to be that bitch. Listen, I liked High School Musical as much as the next girl. Zac Efron and I are the same age. We were at peak time that I should have loved him as an actor, but he's bad, you guys. This is the least convincing acting of the entire Nicholas Sparks franchise. It was also the most boring. I mean, nothing happened in this movie besides the final scene, which the big dramatic moment I do like for certain reasons, but the whole kind of twist around this movie makes no sense. And I know that there is miscommunication in every single Nicholas Sparks book, but the way it was handled in this movie specifically was poorly done, period. It was silly, it was ridiculous, and it was just the most straightforward standard love story, which for me just felt really dull, because I guess that's not what I'm looking for. A bitch who hates romance but can't stop watching romance movies. What's that about? Don't know. No chemistry, I'm telling you.
Number 8, The Last Song. Ronnie, played by Miley Cyrus, is a combative teenager. She gives everyone, especially her dad Steve, a hard time.
Oh, you don't have to wait up for me, Dad. I'm not 12.
I wasn't worried about you when you were 12.
Oh, and now you are?
It is precisely as she lets music back into her life and reconnects with her father that we learn he is dying.
Why didn't you tell us?
Okay, so The Last Song is in my number 9 spot. And as I was saying, Zac Efron had the worst acting performance of this list. In the back of my head it was but you just watched Miley Cyrus for 2 hours in her worst performance. It hurt me, it was laughable. My list, before rewatching all of these, The Last Song was in my top 3. Let me just tell you that much. I loved this movie. I'm the same age, again, as Miley Cyrus. I was probably a little old when Hannah Montana was coming out, but not too old that I didn't tune in occasionally. I've liked following Miley Cyrus's career. It was exciting when she got this movie. This was essentially written for her. The screenplay was written before the book. It was intended for a younger audience, so it doesn't really feel fair as now a 30-year-old really comparing this movie to the rest of them, because it's not for me at this current age. But if we were ranking for nostalgia, if we were ranking for characters that I felt the most close to and represented by, this was at the top. And listen, I'm not saying that a teenage girl is not justified in her moodiness. I'm also not saying that I think there's anything wrong with an unlikable main character. But it's so weird how watching this when I was 19 and watching it at 30, she was so mean to everybody at every single turn. The acting wasn't great. The script wasn't great. The acting from almost the entire cast was really rough. If you have fond memories of this movie, I would actually recommend not rewatching it so you can retain those feelings.
Number 7, Nights in Rodanthe. What happens when...
Okay, Me and Miss Mojo are on the same page and I feel so good about it. Not that our rankings are completely the same. I put Nights in how did they pronounce that? Rodanthe. I listened to a song that had that word in it and they pronounced it so differently and then I got confused. Who knows if that's right. But that is in my second last position. I didn't watch, this is one of the only ones that I didn't watch like as it came out. I watched it for the first time this month. And I can tell you easily like why I didn't watch this back in the day, and I didn't watch Message in a Bottle, and I didn't even watch The Notebook when it came out. And it's just because it was about older people and I was a younger person and I wasn't interested in those stories. But watching it now, I didn't connect with it like anymore as an older person. The only thing that I can say about this movie is there were some nice like surprises with the cast. Like I didn't know anything about this movie, so when Mae Whitman showed up and Viola Davis and James Franco, it was like nice little surprises. And I will say the director of this movie has gone on to direct some bangers that I've really enjoyed, but this was just not it for me. It was so dry, it was so dull. I understand that this was inspired by Nicholas Sparks's meeting of his wife, so this was like a personal story, which maybe is what makes it so like dull, because real life is a little bit dull. It's not over the top, it's not ridiculous, it's not convoluted, it's just like a basic story and it's fine.
They both lead complicated lives. Her husband wants her back, and her daughter is constantly criticizing her. Meanwhile, he's estranged from his son and is being sued. Yet that doesn't stop their love from blossoming. As they forge an unbreakable bond, Paul leaves for South America to make things right with his son. Tragically, he dies while there and never makes it back to Adrian.
Because of you, he was
Shocking.
a changed man.
I'm really just glad that none of my top 4 have been in the bottom half of this list. We're still missing my number 8 spot and my number 6 spot. One of those has to be next. I can't imagine it being anything else.
Number 6, Safe Haven. Julianne Hough and Josh Duhamel take center stage as Katie and Alex in this emotional tale about a woman looking for a new beginning.
Just a clean, empty canvas.
You're just starting over.
You know, sort of.
Okay. I actually really respect where that is in the ranking. I didn't really expect it to be super high, but for me, that's my number 2 spot. And I just asked you guys on Instagram, and a lot of you said that your favorite is Safe Haven. And some of you expected my favorite to be Safe Haven. I think because it is the most thrilling of the entire list. It's the one that feels the most kind of like a mystery. It starts off in a really dark, suspenseful way when she's running away from her abusive husband. The director of this one directed 2 of my top 4. I clearly enjoy his work. I enjoy the small town vibe of like rebuilding your life. At the time that this movie came out, I was a huge Julianne Hough and Josh Duhamel fangirl. So I enjoyed it then, I enjoy it now. There is a little twist at the end. I think the only kind of like paranormal, if you want to call it that, twist in a Nicholas Sparks movie, and obviously that made it higher on the list for me. That twist did catch me off guard because I didn't read the book first. I thought it was exciting and I thought it was sweet and I thought their chemistry was good, and I just like loved the scenes. I loved watching her like take care of this old house and put it back together, and him helping, but them like pushing back and forth because she was still running away from this guy and he just wanted to be with her but she wasn't ready. But then it ended in a really dramatic way and I just had a really good time watching it.
He doesn't know you like I know you. He doesn't love you like I love you.
No, he doesn't.
Things come to a head in a roaring fire where he dies, after which Katie is free to be with her new family. Plus, there's a twist at the end that's out of this world.
Side note, I won't say the acting is the absolute best in this, but like clearly I don't care. I have a feeling they're being a little objective with this list, which is fair, which I'm not. There are stories that are like genuinely just like good, heartfelt stories. Like I know my number 8 spot is just like a nice love story, but it was just like so basic for me, so I wonder how high that's gonna be on the list. I hope it's next.
I'm there with all of you.
Number 5, The Longest Ride.
The Longest
Scott
Ride?
Eastwood's
That's my number
Luke
8.
and Britt Robertson's Sophia are smitten with each other.
No one has ever done anything like this for me before.
And when they save an elderly man named Ira, played by Alan Alda, from a crash, the story really takes off. As Sophia and Luke fall for each other but struggle to make it work, Ira's love story with a woman named Ruth plays out in flashbacks.
Ruth, look, I know I'm not a rich man.
Okay, I really wanted to like this one. I wanted to like it the first time around because I love Britt Robertson. And one of my favorite movies is The First Time. I loved her in that. I enjoyed her in this, but I thought the chemistry was not there. And he was so cringy. I don't know if it's like the actor, I don't know if it's the character, I don't know if it's the writing, I don't know what it is, but like it made me like feel ugh. And then something consistent with me is when there are two storylines going on at the same time, like you've lost me. I just want one cohesive relationship that I can focus my attention on. I don't want these two battling stories. I think that's even why The Best of Me I struggled with. Even though it's the same characters, like I'm following two different stories at the same time and I couldn't care about them equally. So the ending of this one is just so over the top and ridiculous, and like here's a flash forward to our perfect life 5 years later, and that was just a little too much for me. Oh my gosh, they're in their top 4 now. I'm gonna predict that their next one is my number 6 because it can't be any higher than that, please.
His life will be a portrait.
His life will be a portrait of happiness.
Number 4, Message in a Bottle.
Okay, sorry, I keep wanting to talk. I'll let it play.
By Robin Wright, embarks on the ride of her life after she finds a washed-up love letter in a bottle. When more letters are unearthed, she decides to find their author, Garrett, played by Kevin Costner. Just as she was captivated by his words on the page, she falls for him in person.
I don't do this.
Okay, what I will say about this is it's in my top 6. Like, it's my number 6, and I don't know if that'll be surprising to anyone, but it was surprising to me because I had never watched it. And based on seeing all of your responses, I think this is a little underrated of a movie, and I wonder if that's because you haven't watched it either. It took me like a third of the way into the movie to get on board with Kevin Costner because I have only seen Kevin Costner in very different roles from this, and it was hard to wrap my mind around him being this love interest. But once I transported myself back to 1999, I got on board. It's just a really nice story with a really good twist. I thought a different twist was coming, but the twist that ended up happening with the letters in the bottles was like heartbreaking and also beautiful. It's a basic kind of story about a misunderstood guy and a headstrong woman, and my only real critique of this is that his old wife and his new love interest look so similar that there were a couple scenes that showed her and I thought it was the other woman, and it was weird. It's not something I'll ever watch again, but it was surprisingly enjoyable for how freaking long this movie was.
With Wright and Costner's impeccable acting, this adaptation is captivating from start to finish. Number 3, Dear John. Channing Tatum is John and Amanda Seyfried is Savannah in this story of love and loss.
So you used to be tough. Maybe still are a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't scare me, John.
No?
Dramatic scene in the rain.
Oh, you scare me.
Their whirlwind romance is threatened after John extends his military commitment following the 9/11 attack.
Now I will say, like, I have some things I don't love about this movie, and being that it came out 10 years ago as well, there are certain like representation, language things that I don't know about. Like, I haven't looked into other people's feelings about things. I'm really surprised. Like, I knew this was obviously high in the list as the list kept going, but clicking and starting this video, I expected this to be way lower because it is my most unpopular opinion on this list. As far as like average audience ratings, this has like a 6.3 on IMDb, which is one of the lowest of the entire thing. Much like I feel that these movies likely have a heavy female audience, people's high enjoyment of The Lucky One might be impacted because of their love for Zac Efron. I also feel like if you already don't like Channing Tatum, you probably have issues with this movie being this high on the list. When I watched this originally, loved Channing Tatum. Amanda Seyfried was one of my favorite actresses ever, and I think their chemistry is incredible. Especially Amanda Seyfried's acting, I think, is top-notch. So I loved her character. I think people say that this is the most different from the books, and I have read like all of the ways that it's different. And I know people take issue with like her relationship with another guy in the movie. I will definitely be looking for some discourse about people's opinion on the autism rep in this movie. While I do think it's awesome that they have an actor, a child actor who is autistic, is playing the autistic child in the movie, and I know that this is based on Nicholas Sparks' son, I still think it's important to look at how people felt about that representation. But overall, the pace of this movie was incredible. The chemistry was incredible. Rob and I watched this together. A couple of these I made him watch with me. The last song was like laughably terrible, and we had a good time. And then this one made us sob more than any other movie on this list. So definitely the most emotionally impactful for me.
It's not a traditional happy ending, but when Savannah and John run into each other again in the future, there's a hopeful feeling.
I love that kind of open ending. Okay.
Number 2, The Notebook. The Notebook features Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams as Noah and Allie. In the present, their love story is being read to an aging woman with dementia by a senior named Duke.
All right, now, where did we leave off? It was the night of the carnival.
He tells the tale of their joys and struggles, and how the young couple found their way back to each other despite countless obstacles.
So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard.
Okay, I know that this isn't like the most shocking opinion out there. In fact, it's probably the most basic opinion that I have, but I absolutely put The Notebook in number 1. I didn't watch this when it originally came out. I probably prided myself on like not being a Ryan Gosling fangirl at that time and refused to watch it. And then probably 5 years watched like The Place Beyond the Pines and Crazy Stupid Love and Blue Valentine and Driver, which are all some of my all-time favorite movies now, and I'm a Ryan Gosling fangirl. And then I watched The Notebook and I absolutely fell in love with it, and somehow didn't get spoiled for the twist that the people telling the story are the people in the story. How I didn't know that, no idea. I'm surprised Miss Mojo put it this high, because I know they've done entire videos about how Noah's a terrible love interest. Sorry about the lights on my face. But this is why I felt it important to talk about that I don't have to agree with the characters or the relationships in order to enjoy a movie. Because clearly there are some issues here. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the little portion of the older people telling the story was just a little bit, and it was the perfect amount. It wasn't half and half. It wasn't even like 2/3 and 1/3. It was just a little bit. Otherwise, it might have lost me. But this is the best acting of any Nicholas Sparks adaptation. It's the best chemistry. It's the most fun to watch. It has the most passion. And especially watching all of these, I'm telling you, in the last month, this is miles ahead of the others. You might disagree, and I totally get that. You probably take issue with like how toxic they are for each other, the cheating. Anybody who challenges that The Notebook is the best, like I do understand where they're coming from. But look, it's 2 Canadians starring in it. How could I ever rate it lower? Also, side note, both of the fathers in that movie completely made the movie. Like how they were written and how their performances were done, like they were both such an integral part of my enjoyment of the movie, which I definitely don't remember feeling the first time around. And lastly, we already know what it is, but let's listen.
Number 1, A Walk to Remember. This classic stars Mandy Moore as Jamie, a shy reverend's daughter who keeps to herself. That is, until she ends up helping Landon, the school's resident cool kid, played by Shane West.
So that is in my number 3 position, and I understand why it's in their number 1. Nostalgia really did get me here. Like 12-year-old me, Shane West was just everything. And listen, we were eating up the bad boy storyline, and that's one thing that marathoning all of these really showed me, is that A Walk to Remember is really different. A Nicholas Sparks movie has yet to have a love interest who's a genuinely bad person. Like all of the movies are about just like soft, nice boys. Sometimes they're misunderstood, sometimes they make bad choices, sometimes they're in difficult circumstances, but almost always they're just like a genuinely nice guy who wants the best for the woman in the movie. But he was like a genuinely not good guy, and he changed his ways throughout the movie because of her influence. I'm not saying we need more movies like that now at all, but this was genuinely good in its time, and I think reflecting on it now, it's still good. It's not good enough to be in the #1 position, and I think maybe it just because it's a product of its time, and there are quite a few issues that I had with it and how it treated like a lot of side characters and discussed certain things. But knowing this was inspired by the tragic loss of Nicholas Sparks' sister, like, also gives it like a genuine quality.
I was getting along with everything fine. I accepted it, and then you happen. I do not need a reason to be angry with God.
Jamie is dying of cancer, so Landon does everything in his power to make her final months special.
The special thing about the 90s and watching movies in the 90s is that, like, we didn't have the internet. We couldn't be spoiled for a movie unless somebody had like gone to the theater the day before we got to watch it and they spoiled it. So like everything felt more impactful because there hadn't really been a movie like this before it. A love story that just looked like a love story that ended in tragedy. So I remember the feelings of when she revealed that she was sick and like going through the process of thinking, okay, well, she's obviously gonna get better because this is a love story. So it was really unexpected and it was really beautiful and it was really sad. And watching it again as an adult, it was still enjoyable. Not in the #1 position for me, but I'm not gonna say that they're not justified in that. And in the comments that you guys are leaving, I see a ton of A Walk to Remember being listed. So I definitely anticipate that being in your list. So that's everything. We went through all of the movies, which ones were my favorites. I mostly agreed, but I understand everything that I didn't agree with. I would love to know your thoughts on their ranking or on my ranking. I would love if you left yours down below just so I could know. Have you seen all of them? How many people out there have seen all of them? Next question, can I film my wrap up without having finished this, or will you all yell at me? Because I'll film it like tomorrow, if you say I can, or I'll wait and film it in like a week, if that's what you think. Let me know down below all of your thoughts on everything that we talked about. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.